When the heavens tremble and ancient seals awaken, destiny no longer belongs to the cautious, it belongs to those who dare to seize it. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Not long after, the others returned from inspecting the concealment formations, and each of them brought back the same grim conclusion. The formations had been utterly annihilated, erased as though by an unseen hand, and the disciples tasked with guarding them had vanished without a trace. A chill swept through the gathered cultivators. An invisible weight pressed upon their hearts, and for a time none dared to speak. At last the scholar let out a bitter laugh, the sound thin and cold in the heavy air. There are no other cultivators within 50 kilometers, and for our concealment to be broken at the very moment we dissolve the seal, the timing is far too precise. It seems this deed was done by one of us. One of us? How could that be? Everyone here is a member of the Ye clan. No, there is one who does not truly belong to our clan. A murmur rippled through the crowd. After only a few exchanges, an unspoken name surfaced in every mind. Almost as one, the cultivators turned to look at a single figure. He wore an ordinary face and bore an expression of tranquil composure, utterly unremarkable. It was the disguised Elder Devil. The Ye clan's Grand Elder spoke gravely. Elder Han was personally invited by me. From the beginning until now, he has remained at Seventh Uncle's side. That's right, the large-headed eccentric chimed in. Fellow Taoist Han has not left our sight. Hearing this, the tension in the air gradually loosened, and the seeds of suspicion were reluctantly buried. The scholar then turned toward the square-faced cultivator. Second brother, descend to the bottom of the lake. See whether anyone else is missing, apart from the vanished disciples. Yes, the square-faced man answered without hesitation. In the next breath, he transformed into a streak of radiant light and shot deep beneath the waters. The scholar's expression hardened, the warmth in his eyes extinguished. Clan elders, prepare yourselves. Though this astonishing upheaval has exposed our presence, we are not in immediate danger. Nanjiang harbors no supreme sect capable of challenging us outright. Even those who might contend with our strength would require at least half a month to arrive. His voice deepened, solemn and resolute. We do not know what lies hidden within Kunwu Mountain, but whatever it is, we must unearth its treasures with all haste. The two divine spirit treasures in particular must be seized before all else. Without them, we will lack the strength to weather the storm that is coming. His gaze swept over the elders like a blade. Those parasites have plotted against our clan for thousands of years. Given the slightest opportunity, they would wipe us from existence. Failure is not an option. A tremor stirred in the hearts of those present. As one, they bowed and responded, voices ringing in unison. As you command, Grand Elder. Soon after, the square-faced cultivator returned, and together with the Grand Elder and the old formation Grandmaster, gathered above the still waters of the lake. Third brother, the square-faced man said darkly, 2 spell formation masters are missing the nephews of old 5th and 12th. Could it be they betrayed us? The scholar snorted coldly. More likely they were slain, their souls scoured for secrets. When did they disappear? The white-haired old man's face was damp with cold sweat. Approximately 2 days ago, Grand Elder. They oversaw the formations at the farthest perimeter. Their absence did not arouse suspicion at first. Only after the disciples regrouped did we realize they were missing. The scholar's eyes glinted frostily. Then the root of this calamity lies with them. But their fate is no longer of consequence. Once we enter Kunwu Mountain, all disciples and formation masters will withdraw. Have we confirmed the seal's opening? Yes. 10 kilometers north of here, 3 kilometers beneath the surface. The opening should span roughly 100 meters. Lead the way. We depart immediately. Yes, Grand Elder. The white-haired man bowed deeply. The party of 9 soared northward, soon arriving above a stretch of verdant jungle, lush and ancient. The white-haired Grandmaster scanned the forest below before flicking his sleeve. A silver plate appeared in his palm. After chanting a low incantation, he struck the plate with a spell seal. Its surface flared with argent radiance. talismanic characters blossoming across it like constellations in the night sky. It is here, he confirmed after a moment, eyes gleaming faintly. Good. The scholar turned to the old Taoist nun. Ninth sister, release your spirit beast. We descend. The nun gave a curt nod and slapped the spirit beast pouch at her waist. A streak of yellow light burst forth and rapidly expanded, revealing a monstrous centipede over 30 meters long, its 1,000 legs rippling like waves. Wisps of sinister green chi leaked from its mandibles, curling into the air like venomous breath. Save for the white-clothed old man, all the Ye clan cultivators mounted the centipede's broad back. With a sharp command from the nun, a veil of yellow light enveloped the creature, encasing both beast and riders within its protective glow. In the next instant, the colossal centipede plunged downward, burrowing straight into the earth and vanishing in the blink of an eye. The white-haired old man lingered in the sky for a time. After confirming that the Ye clan cultivators would not return, he let out a long, weary sigh and slowly flew back the way he had come. 100 kilometers away, several blue-robed cultivators wearing red headbands stood suspended in the sky. They stared at the towering pillars of light in the distance, their expressions filled with astonishment and unease. Among them, a youth barely 20 years of age exclaimed, "What could possibly give rise to such a heaven-shaking spectacle?" The tan, middle-aged cultivator leading them spoke grimly, "This is no ordinary phenomenon. Junior Marshal Brother Yu, return at once and report to the sect. I will take the others to investigate." At his command, the youth immediately mounted his magic tool and shot away. The rest turned and headed toward the radiant pillars. Farther still, atop a towering mountain, over 100 cultivators in varied attire had gathered. Their cultivation was meager, most at the chi condensation stage. Yet even they could see the celestial beams piercing the distant horizon. One after another they rose to their feet, eyes filled with awe and greed as they gazed toward the source of the light. Beneath a desolate mountain stood a plump old man before a half-open stone gate. He too watched the pillars of light, his eyes deep and contemplative, as though calculating unseen threads of fate. As time passed, the exposed pillars drew cultivators from every corner of Nanjiang like moths to a blazing flame. News of a world-shaking treasure emerging into existence spread with terrifying speed. Within mere days, the rumor had swept across neighboring regions, stirring all of Nanjiang into restless upheaval. Amid this rising storm, Han Li stood alone within a colossal teleportation formation inside a vast stalactite cavern. His gaze was heavy as it fell upon the shattered rings at his feet, rings that still glimmered faintly with residual, crimson light. They had once restrained the silver-winged night fiend. Now they lay broken. As for the night fiend's whereabouts, he had no answer. Han Li lowered his eyes to his waist. There, a jade talisman emitted a soft, luminous glow. The markings upon it were familiar, those of a rare teleportation talisman, one he had last encountered in the scattered star seas. His brows knit together. With a flick of his hand, he produced a glowing blue medallion, the greater teleportation medallion he had obtained long ago. Fearing the crushing spatial pressure might tear him asunder, he had summoned the medallion before the teleportation was complete. Yet just as the formation's radiance had begun to engulf him, another talisman of similar nature had inexplicably appeared at his waist. Whether this anomaly stemmed from some peculiarity in the ancient formation itself, or from deliberate arrangements made by its creators, he could not say. In any case, this formation differed vastly from contemporary designs. It was worth studying. As this thought crossed his mind, he reached toward the jade talisman. Before his fingers could touch it, however, it disintegrated into countless motes of light. Han Li smiled bitterly. Teleportation talismans were notoriously difficult to refine and could only sustain a single use. It seemed this one was no exception. He swept his gaze across the cavern. Nearby stood the weeping soul beast, along with 2 suspended grey cocoons, each once affixed with jade talismans that had now likewise shattered. The corpse wolf, however, lay dead. The 10-meter-tall weeping soul beast, capered atop its carcass, pounding its chest in primitive triumph. Thanks to his formidable spiritual sense, Hanli had recovered from the dizziness of teleportation with remarkable speed. Seizing the fleeting opportunity, he had struck with a bolt of divine Devilbane lightning, grievously wounding the beast. The weeping soul beast then exhaled a plume of yellow mist, absorbing every strand of corpse chi from the wolf's body and effortlessly finishing it off. As for the silver-winged night fiend, it showed no interest in continuing the battle. Having finally regained its long-imprisoned freedom, it chose instead to seize the moment and depart with the wind, vanishing into the vast unknown. Hanli had no intention of pursuing the silver-winged night fiend in this unfamiliar realm. Without the ancient barrier to confine it, even the Tri-Flame fan would not guarantee an easy kill. And besides, he turned his gaze toward the weeping soul beast. The enormous creature was currently waving a small white object in its claw with childlike excitement, as though presenting a prize trophy. Hanli's lips curved faintly. Upon closer inspection, the object was a delicate little horse, no more than half a foot tall. Its body was pure white as snow, and within its tiny head gleamed two eerie green eyes, bright as ghostly lanterns in the dark. It was the Umbra yin horse, the true objective of their perilous expedition. At the moment the teleportation had begun, the creature had cleverly concealed itself once more within the corpse wolf's body. Thus, when the weeping soul beast unleashed its yellow mist to extract the wolf's corpse chi, the Umbra yin horse had been inadvertently captured along with it. Had Hanli not sensed its presence in time and commanded the beast to stop, the spirit creature might well have been devoured along with the corpse. As for the two flying swords seized by the night fiend, the creature had shown no interest in them after the teleportation. Hanli retrieved them with ease. Unfortunately, the black-robed woman's nascent soul had not been so fortunate. It had been swallowed whole before the silver-winged night fiend fled. The only matter that cast a shadow over Hanli's thoughts was the loss of his crystal flying needle, now in the night fiend's possession. Still, he was not overly anxious. Erasing his spiritual imprint would not be easy. For the time being, the night fiend would be unable to refine it fully. There might yet come a chance to reclaim what was his. Having settled these thoughts, Hanli began to examine his surroundings. The cavern bore a striking resemblance to the underground chamber they had previously occupied. Yet there were no yin winds swirling through the air. Instead, the atmosphere was rich with dense spiritual chi, pure and invigorating. Clearly, this cave was situated atop a top-grade spirit vein. He lowered his gaze to the spell formation beneath his feet. With his experience, he immediately recognized it as a receiving formation. In other words, there was no return path. Hanli frowned slightly before turning his attention to the two massive grey cocoons nearby. Strong pulses of spiritual chi emanated from within them, steady and unmistakable. Old Man Fu and Bai Yaoyi were still alive. After a brief moment of contemplation, Hanli beckoned to the weeping soul beast. The creature obediently handed over the Umbra yin horse. Hanli summoned it into his palm and swiftly affixed several restrictive talismans to its body before sealing it inside a spirit beast pouch. Only then did he raise his hand. Two dense bolts of golden lightning burst forth, striking the grey cocoons with a thunderous explosion. The lightning spread into a radiant net, crackling and wrapping tightly around the writhing threads. For a time, lightning and ghostly filaments battled fiercely. Bereft of the silver-winged night fiend's control, the ghost fiend threads began to unravel layer by layer beneath the relentless golden arcs. At last, the cocoons shattered. Old Man Fu and Bai Yaoyi emerged pale-faced and visibly shaken. After being bound by the ghost fiend threads for so long, having their magic power forcibly siphoned away the agony they endured could well be imagined. Old Man Fu exhaled deeply before offering a respectful salute. "Many thanks for your rescue, Brother Han." Bai Yaoyi bowed, as well a wry smile on her lips. "Had it not been for Brother Han's formidable abilities, I fear we would all have perished. Who could have imagined that the yin-yang cave concealed a silver-winged night fiend? We were utterly defenseless when that monster ambushed us. In the chaos, fellow Taoist, Yuan lost his nascent soul and perished. Han Li responded with only a faint smile. Though their words were filled with gratitude, he did not fail to notice the trace of fear hidden deep within their eyes. After all, even while trapped, they had clearly sensed the battle outside. Han Li had not merely withstood the silver-winged night fiend, he had forced it to retreat. Against such power they stood no chance. And now they had been transported to an unknown and isolated place, with no witnesses, no allies, only him. If he harbored ill intent, their fate would be sealed. Han Li, however, seemed entirely unconcerned with their unease. With a casual motion, he tossed a spirit beast pouch toward Old Man Fu. The Umbra yin horse is inside. Should you succeed in refining extra nascent nurturing pills, I will require 2. Is that agreeable? Old Man Fu's shoulders visibly relaxed. Of course. If sufficient pills are produced, 2 shall be yours without question. Bai Yaoyi added softly, I have no objections either. I am rather ashamed to have relied entirely upon your strength. It is only proper that you receive a greater share. Han Li nodded, then cast his gaze toward the cavern's exit, eyes narrowing slightly. Very well. Rest here for now. I will scout ahead and see what lies beyond. Please do, Brother Han. Old Man Fu replied readily. We are in no condition to move just yet. Bai Yaoyi had already seated herself cross-legged, entering meditation. Azure light flared faintly around Han Li's body as he shot forward. At the same time, he fully released his spiritual sense, sweeping the surrounding region without reservation. Whether to guard against the silver-winged night fiend lying in ambush, or to ensure the 2 cultivators did not attempt. To flee only he knew. The tracking marks he had left upon them would last a few more days. He was no saint. For a fleeting instant, the thought of eliminating them for their treasures flickered through his mind. Yet he dismissed it just as swiftly. He knew too little about the nascent nurturing pill. Even if he acquired the formula, his chances of successfully refining it were slim. Moreover, the 2 had left him with a favorable impression. There was no need to stain his hands. Thus, after a moment's reflection, he had chosen to release them. Leaving the main chamber, Han Li discovered a flight of stone steps ascending upward. The staircase vanished into shadow, its end nowhere in sight. Strange. Were they truly this deep underground? With a hint of curiosity, he flew upward. Before long, astonishment crept into his expression. He had ascended for quite some time, yet the staircase continued endlessly. Though only a short interval had passed, his speed was far from slow. Were it not for his spiritual sense confirming his surroundings, he might have suspected he had fallen into some kind of illusory restriction. How could a passage stretch so far? After flying several kilometers, he finally glimpsed faint light ahead. When he emerged from the passage, the world before him brightened abruptly. He found himself standing upon an enormous paved expanse. The ground, stretching over 3 kilometers wide, was entirely laid with ancient stone bricks. The air carried a faint sweetness, the fragrance of vegetation. The spiritual qi here was even denser than within the cavern below. Yet all of this paled in comparison to the sight before him. At the far end of the stone plaza rose a towering cliff face. When he lifted his gaze upward, he saw only a mountain without end. Behind him stood another colossal mountain wall. Only then did he realize he was situated within a vast valley. Han Li gazed toward the sky for a long while. Above, only winding cliffs and a narrow ribbon of turquoise heaven could be seen. Without hesitation, he rose into the air. After flying several kilometers, he finally exited the valley. What he beheld caused him to freeze in disbelief. He hastily circled the surrounding area, then returned to his original position, his mind still reeling. Only a single word formed in his thoughts: big. In his long life, Han Li had seen countless mountains, the most imposing among them being the sacred mountain of Heavenly Star Island. Yet the colossal mountain before him seemed like a pillar forged to prop up the heavens themselves. From what he could see alone, it might be divided into 81 immense tiers, each vast enough to house multitudes of cultivators. Standing at its base, he could not make a precise comparison to Heavenly Star Island's sacred mountain. But in his heart he suspected this one might well surpass it. When he raised his head, an endless turquoise sky stretched above him. The valley from which he had emerged was nothing more than an insignificant fissure in the mountain's body. And yet, what truly rendered him speechless was the immense restriction enveloping the entire mountain. At its outermost boundary shimmered a vast white barrier of light, encasing the mountain in its entirety like a celestial dome. Such a grand and ancient handiwork could only be the creation of cultivators from ages long past. After a brief hesitation, Han Li flew toward the barrier. It took the time of half a cup of tea to reach it. Before the colossal wall of light, he was but a speck of dust. He studied it for a long while, but even with his sharp eyes and spiritual sense, he could not discern its thickness. There was no point in testing it, let alone a mid-nascent soul cultivator, even one at the deity transformation stage, would likely be unable to shatter such a formation through brute force. When Han Li turned his gaze back toward the mountain, he noticed something else. Silence. Utter silence. Not a single bird call echoed through the air. No rustling of leaves, no whisper of life. And yet the spiritual qi here was fiercely abundant. The contradiction stirred a strange unease within him. With a gloomy expression settling upon his face, Han Li descended once more into the valley, returning to the teleportation formation in thoughtful silence. When Han Li returned to the cavern, he found Old Man Fu and Bai Yaoyi seated in meditation, their auras faint but steady. He had no intention of disturbing them. After a brief pause, he slapped his storage pouch and withdrew a stack of formation flags and array plates, casting them into the air with a flick of his sleeve. Multicolored radiance bloomed at once, weaving together into a luminous veil that enveloped the entire cavern. It was a modest formation, one designed for concealment and detection. Should anyone trespass, it would provide early warning. The other two cultivators seemed to notice his actions, yet neither reacted. They remained motionless, eyes closed, as if nothing had occurred. Seeing this, Han Li smiled faintly. He chose a quiet corner of the cavern, sat down cross-legged, and entered meditation as well. Over the course of a full day, Old Man Fu and Bai Yaoyi gradually restored their depleted magic power. When the two finally rose to their feet, Han Li's expression stirred. His eyes opened calmly, as though he had never truly been asleep. "Fellow Taoists," he asked evenly, "have you recovered?" Bai Yaoyi offered him a gentle smile. "Many thanks for your protection, Brother Han. Our magic power has nearly returned to its peak." Old Man Fu glanced toward the massive teleportation formation at the cavern's center. "Brother Han, have you already gone outside to investigate where we are?" "I have," Han Li replied, "but I cannot say with certainty. We appear to be deep within a colossal mountain, one entirely enveloped by a gargantuan restriction." Old Man Fu's eyes lit up at once. Confidence crept into his expression. "Since Brother Han is an overseas cultivator, it is only natural that you are unfamiliar with certain renowned landmarks of the mainland. I may be able to recognize this place." Han Li chuckled softly. "Oh, then I shall trouble Brother Fu to enlighten us." Upon hearing this, Bai Yaoyi's eyes brightened as well. From Brother Han's tone, this mountain must be quite extraordinary. "Shall I accompany him to take a look?" Han Li gave an indifferent nod. Given his superior abilities, it had become unspoken that he now stood at the forefront of their small group. The two exchanged a glance before transforming into streaks of light and flying out of the cavern. Han Li, however, remained seated. With a flip of his hand, he summoned a small tracking formation plate. Upon its surface, a white dot and a black dot shone faintly. He narrowed his eyes and observed them in silence. Before long, his brow rose slightly. With a flash of light, he put the plate away. Moments later, light shimmered at the top of the stairway as the two cultivators returned. Yet their expressions were far from pleasant. "Well," Han Li asked with a faint, inscrutable smile, "did you discover anything?" Old Man Fu forced a wry smile. "Brother Han, now is hardly the time for jest. I have never heard of a mountain of such magnitude." We are no longer certain we remain within Great Jin. A trace of worry flickered across his face. Bai Yoyi frowned deeply. If such a mountain existed within Great Jin, its name would have shaken the entire cultivation world. We would certainly have known. Perhaps Han Li replied calmly, "Though I know little of this mountain's origins or the nature of its outer restriction, I am certain the teleportation formation below was laid down by ancient cultivators. Whether it was triggered by our battle or by some other hidden mechanism is unclear." He paused briefly before continuing, "But that is not our immediate concern. For now, let us refine the nascent cultivating pill. After that, we can decide our next course of action." Old Man Fu fell silent for a moment, then smiled. "Brother Han speaks reasonably. The spiritual qi here is extraordinarily abundant. Remaining here for a time will do us no harm. And with Brother Han present, we have little to fear. Perhaps this is an opportunity bestowed by fate." Bai Yaoyi nodded as well. The thought of the nascent cultivating pill clearly stirred anticipation within her. "Brother Fu overpraises me," Han Li replied lightly. Then his tone shifted. "However, I trust you both have noticed the mountain's outer restriction greatly suppresses our spiritual sense. We can perceive only a few kilometers at best. To search such a vast region may take an inordinate amount of time." Bai Yaoyi added softly, "And there is something even more unsettling. There is no life upon this mountain. Not a single bird, not a single beast. It hardly feels like a place where one can rest at ease." Old Man Fu let out a dry chuckle. "Be that as it may, the dense spiritual qi will greatly aid pill refinement. I shall begin at once." The other two offered no objections. Together they laid down a spirit-gathering formation, along with several additional protective restrictions. Only once the arrays were complete did Old Man Fu sit down and commence the refinement process. For the time being, Han Li and Bai Yaoyi remained within the cavern standing vigil. The nascent cultivating pill was of utmost importance to them. In such a strange and silent mountain, they dared not relax their guard. Halfway up an immense mountain, the Ye clan cultivators gathered within a stone pavilion. Most of them sat cross-legged spirit stones clasped in hand as they recovered their depleted magic power. Above them floated the Ye clan Grand Elder, the white-robed scholar, his expression indifferent as he gazed upon the stairway ahead. The steps were carved from pure white jade. From afar they resembled a celestial ladder ascending to the heavens. Each step spanned nearly 20 meters in width, and as one looked upward, they disappeared into a veil of white mist. Their end unseen. Soon a streak of light flashed across the horizon and sped toward them, descending before the staircase. The scholar stirred and turned toward the approaching radiance. In the blink of an eye, it halted before him and dissipated, revealing the large-headed eccentric, the Ye clan's seventh uncle. The eccentric's face was solemn. "Young third, I followed the staircase for several dozen kilometers and discovered an ornate archway. It resembles the legendary Myriad Cultivator Gate. However, powerful ceiling restrictions bar the path. Without dispelling them, there is no passage forward." The scholar exhaled softly. "If that is so, then more than 10,000 ancient cultivators must once have resided upon Kunwu Mountain. Only after passing that gate will we reach their dwellings." The eccentric glanced down at the resting elders and frowned. "The ceiling restriction is anything but ordinary. We must dispel it as swiftly as possible. We cannot afford delay." The scholar gave a helpless smile. "Indeed. Yet the elders' magic power is depleted. They require time to recover. We cannot divide our forces. Though you and I may endure, this mountain is unlikely to be safe." The eccentric sighed. "I had not expected that merely passing through the opening of Kunwu Mountain's seal would prove so arduous. It is fortunate we are all nascent soul cultivators. Otherwise, casualties would have been inevitable." The scholar nodded and was about to reply when his expression suddenly darkened. He turned sharply toward the distance. "What is it?" the eccentric asked, puzzled. "There is a sound," the scholar said solemnly. "From that direction." A sound. The eccentric circulated his magic power and listened intently. At first it was faint, a low feral snarl, Then it grew clearer, feline, and approaching. What? Something is coming. A glacial light flashed through the eccentric's eyes. He flipped his hand, summoning an object that shimmered with silver radiance. The scholar's gaze locked onto the distance. Soon, a purple cloud appeared upon the horizon, racing toward them. In the span of a breath, it arrived and halted 300 meters away. Within the roiling mist, a black silhouette could be glimpsed along with a pair of scarlet eyes burning with savage fury. Without hesitation, the eccentric raised his hand and released a streak of silver light. It vanished from sight, only for a pair of massive avian talons to burst forth from the purple mist at that very instant. A loud clang rang out as silver light erupted. A bestial roar shook the air. The talons clutched an exquisite silver blade several inches long, its brilliance undiminished. Yet green blood dripped from between the creature's claws. The monster howled in pain. An ominous gleam flickered within its scarlet eyes. The purple mist suddenly dissipated, leaving only those two vicious demon eyes hanging in mid-air. And then they too vanished. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The creature was skilled in concealment. With their spiritual senses suppressed by the mountain's restriction, engaging such a foe would prove exceedingly troublesome. The scholar and the eccentric exchanged a glance. Without another word, both began to cast their techniques. The eccentric opened his mouth and spat out a yellow flying sword. It circled once in the air before expanding to 3 meters in length. Swordlight erupted from its surface, and streaks of dazzling sword chi burst outward, forming a defensive perimeter 30 meters wide. The scholar let out a cold snort. With a flick of his sleeve, a small green flag appeared in his hand. He cast it downward. A surge of emerald chi gushed forth, spreading into thick fog that enveloped and shielded the resting Ye clan cultivators within the pavilion. That's all for today's content. See you in the next part. Support me by becoming a member. It will give me more motivation. Thank you so much.